wake of the Second World War in 1939. One of humanity's arguably most devastating chapters in the human history was unfolding. But thousands of miles away, the Horn of Africa too became a front line, drawing both soldiers and civilians into a conflict that was no longer distant, but dangerously close. At a time when the indigenous population was still coming to terms with the realities of colonialism, in the hands of the very European powers that were entangled in the war. It was amidst this chaos that one man would later emerge as a central pillar to the evolution of Kenya's present-day legislature found himself entrusted with an important legal responsibility related to that very war within the larger British East Africa. His name was Mr. John Humphrey Slade, a lawyer who had a few years earlier graduated as a British solicitor prior to his relocation to practice law in Kenya, where he found himself appointed by the colonial governor as deputy judge advocate of the East African Forces, a military court that majorly handled queries related to the war on the British East Africa frontiers. And although his work rarely made newspaper headlines, amid the raging war that tested nearly every institution across the globe, Mr. Slade created a name within government circles as one lawyer who could navigate difficult questions with fairness and restraint. Those qualities proved indispensable in the years that followed, when the guns eventually fell silent in 1945 with the end of the World War, as Africa entered the new phase in the quest for more inclusive leadership, constitutional reforms, and eventually independence from colonial rule. It was in the middle of these emerging complexities in the relationship between the colonial government, the settler community, and an increasingly agitated but better organized African political movement that Mr. Slade threw his heart into the political ring. He got elected as a member of the Colonial Legislative Council, better known as LEGCO, to represent the Aberdare constituency in 1952. Marking commencement of his 8-year stint in that inaugural colonial legislative chamber until the year 1960, when he ascended to the prestigious post of LEGCO Speaker, a position that had remained vacant for 5 years after his predecessor, Speaker William Kenneth Horne, retired from public service on 4th October 1955. Parliamentary records indicate that Honorable Slade was sworn in as Speaker on Tuesday, the 25th of October 1960. On that day, the official records of LEGCO debates, the equivalent of today's Hansard Report of Parliament, indicates that the House met at 15 minutes past 2 o'clock in the afternoon. During that sitting, the House adjourned briefly to allow the Deputy Speaker then, the Honorable David William Conroy, to usher in the Colonial Governor, His Excellency Sir Patrick Renison, to the chamber for the purpose of formally appointing the Speaker. The Governor appointed Honorable John Humphrey Slade as Speaker, describing him as a member of the Council held in high esteem for his sincerity, ability, and unwavering support to the principles of justice and right dealing. According to the Hansard, the Governor also indicated that Honorable Slade enjoyed the respect and goodwill of all the honorable members of the Council, and that he had no doubt that the procedures, dignity, and traditions of democratic parliamentary government would in that council be safe in Honorable Slade's hands. The Governor then administered the oath of allegiance on Honorable Slade before handing him the instrument of appointment as Speaker. After that brief ceremony, the Governor also announced the appointment of Honorable Jeremiah Nyaga, an African native, as Deputy Speaker and Chairman of Committees. Honorable Jeremiah Nyaga had been elected to LEGCO in March 1958 to represent Embu constituency, which had been hived off from Central Kenya constituency which was represented by the Honorable Bernard Mate. From the Speaker's chair, Honorable Slade presided over debates that would ultimately pave the way to Kenya's independence. As political leaders negotiated the country's future, his responsibility was to ensure that the legislature functioned with fairness, dignity, and respect for procedure as Kenya eventually achieved independence on the 1st of June 1963, with the Right Honorable Mzee Jomo Kenyatta as Prime Minister. In that cusp of history, the legislature too got a rebirth, transitioning from LegCo to a bicameral parliament, comprising a House of Representatives and a Senate. 6 days later, on the 7th of June 1963, the House of Representatives sat for, among other business, the key agenda of the election of the House Speaker. This time, and in departure from the tradition of appointment, Honorable Slade was nominated and elected unopposed as Speaker. On the same day in the Senate, the Honorable Timothy Chitasi Muinga Chokwe was elected as Senate Speaker. The two held their posts as Speaker in the respective chambers even as Kenya became a republic on the 12th of December 1964, until 1966, when the Kenyan Parliament reverted to a unicameral parliament called the National Assembly, to which Sir Honorable Slade was elected as Speaker. Honorable Slade went on to sit as House Speaker until the year 1970, when he retired from public service.